Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock. Let's go over what is happening to the stock, what we can expect moving forward and all of that good stuff. So ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my analysis, don't forget that I do share my analysis and my thoughts essentially every single day the market is open in my membership section on YouTube. That link is down below in the description of the video, at the top of the description of the video. You can check it out. You can join literally for just a few dollars a month, $3 a month. You get access to all my intraday thoughts, post updates, mainly on Tesla stock. Every day the market is trading. Sometimes I share bonus stocks, like today I shared Costco. Other days I've shared AMD, etc., etc., etc. So definitely check that out. Link is below, or for $5 a month, you get access to all of that. Plus, you get access to my NVIDIA daily updates. Daily. But anyway, jumping into a Tesla with an absolutely pretty respectable day. Closing the day up about 3.5%, closing out, we'll say $357 per share, which compared to the market is going to be a little bit of an outperformance for sure. For Tesla stock, of course, seemingly off of the news of course, FSD version 13.2, I believe it was, releasing to very small amount of customers, right? Usually it's like the specific influencers like Dirty Tesla, AI Driver, Whole Mars, etc. But nonetheless, from what I've seen, man, it looks good. I'm just sad that I'm sitting on hardware 3. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little sad about that. But it looks absolutely phenomenal. Now, what does this mean, however, moving for, well, the chart, right? The chart, what does this mean? Well, like I said, right, on Friday, we closed back within this sideways price range roughly, where, we ended up coming back into this, range that we were kind of just going sideways in for quite some time, which was a good sign for the bulls. But obviously, like I said, I did want to see a little bit more. Unfortunately, a lot of the times these a little bit more situations where, I wanted to break above 347 to 350 happens on gap ups. Sometimes it happens on gap ups and it, kind of makes the opportunity to really get in on a nice kind of risk versus reward type trade a little bit more difficult. And that's kind of the situation, at least I personally find myself in right now. Of course, on my trading account, I still have, of course, my long-term account. But the way I look at it is, well, Tesla now is in a very interesting position. Now, there's a few things that I'm looking at for Tesla here that are good and bad, right? So as usual, there's always two sides to a coin. Let's go look at the bullish side, right? What are the bullish signs of Tesla here that, are potentially exciting, right? Potentially exciting and potentially can leave Tesla some pretty, nice amount of room to still run up even further for the rest of this year, for the final month of the year, December. So let's talk about that first. So the way I'm looking at it is Tesla could be actually setting up what looks to be potentially a nice, beautiful looking on the daily chart, rising triangle pattern, right? So remember on the 1 hour, we were setting one up before. Remember it was this one. I think it was looking like something like this. Let me remove all these things for now, just so it's less, cluttered. Remember, I think it was setting something like this. I'm sure you all remember this little, it was right here. This was it. I'm sure you all remember this little rising triangle on the small 1 hour chart we were talking about, and then kind of had a failed breakout, right? I'm sure you all remember that. We had a nice little sell off into that. Well, we're kind of finding ourselves in a similar situation on the daily. So it's just a large, same pattern, just larger. Now, obviously, as you've seen before, not every pattern is perfect and you can have false breakouts, breakdowns, etc. But as of right now and as it stands, I never assume a breakout or a breakdown will be false until, well, proven otherwise. So in this case, what I see is essentially, again, a rising triangle pattern where, we're pretty much getting rejected at the exact same level every single time, right here. And once again, we're getting rejected today so far. But each time we have gotten rejected and moved lower, got rejected, moved lower, potentially there's a chance we do get rejected and actually move lower down to about 340. That is a possibility here. But the point is the fact that each time that has happened, we have made a higher low, or in other words, the buyers have stepped in at a higher and higher and higher price, essentially, right? Constantly making these higher lows while making equal highs. That is a rising triangle pattern. One of my favorite patterns, actually, personally. So the way I look at it is pretty simple. Tesla, essentially, if it can ever close a daily candle really above 360, but ideally 363, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. That to me pretty much screams breakout, which is essentially what Apple's doing. You can see here, Apple was doing this on a substantially larger scale. So honestly, if I ever see Apple pull back into about this 230, mid 230s-ish region, or a mid to low 230s region, I'm most likely going to be entering Apple on that. But, the thing I bring up here is the fact that Apple's doing the exact same pattern, just on it's a much larger, of course, of a rising triangle pattern, which also could mean a much larger breakout, assuming this has follow through, which you assume it does. And the point is Tesla's doing the exact same thing. So that's kind of what you want to see on Tesla that Apple's pretty much did today, or arguably on Friday, where this kind of breakout started to occur. Good sign. So that's kind of what we're looking for on Tesla here. Now, obviously, the other option is, well, again, let's just look at Apple as an example, because it pretty much played out this pattern is, you can see Apple rejected at the same level 1, 2, 3, pretty much 4 times. And each time it also pretty much went down. But, arguably okay, it didn't make perfect higher lows. Honestly, this right here was kind of a bait, but nonetheless, you know, it still overall held this rough pattern, and it still ultimately ended up breaking out. So that, again, I'm just using this as an example because it's already pretty much playing out, and we're just waiting for Tesla to do the same thing, where as long as Tesla comes back down, and, you know, maybe it doesn't have to come all the way down to this, you know, trend line again. Maybe it doesn't have to set up a perfect higher low right at this trend line at 340, let's say sometime this week or something like that. Maybe it doesn't do that. Maybe it just comes back down to, you know, only the 347-ish range. That also could be just enough, right? You never know for sure. But ultimately, the trigger is one of two things will happen. Either we will, if at some point, break down below this trend line, and this pattern essentially ends up being a false pattern and doesn't actually fully execute, false alarm. That's a possibility. That, you know, you always want to take that into consideration. That is a possibility. Or at some point or another, you know, despite whatever happens within this situation here, we break out. We break out, and at the very least, we even just moving past 363 already could be a good sign intraday. But even just closing above 360 to 363 already can be a promising start for Tesla moving forward. And again, if that happens, at the very least, I personally think Tesla will come up to about 385. I think personally, best case is 400. I don't personally think. I mean, okay, best case is 420, which is closer to the all-time highs. I don't know if we'll actually get all the way up there. I'll be completely honest, but obviously you never know. But at the very least, I'd be pretty shocked not to see 385 at least, assuming we break out of this pattern in that bullish fashion, right? So that's probably the main bullish thing to look at, right? Of all the bullish things to look at, and honestly, you know, there are still some signs of concern here. This is probably the main one. This is by far the main one that I'd be watching for without question, right? So watch for that. Now, that's the bullish side, right? That's the bullish side, absolutely, right? We're obviously above the market bias on the daily chart, right? In terms of the 8 and the 21 EMA, which is essentially the top and bottom of this green little cloud here. We're above all those bad boys as well, despite that small little mini false breakdown we had a couple of days ago on Wednesday. So, you know, things are looking good. Things are looking bullish, and the momentum still looks good. The momentum still looks good for Tesla, good enough to potentially, you know, break out of this pattern. So, you know, it's just a matter of what is your risk tolerance, what, you know, area would you rather enter? Because, you know, there's a chance that maybe you enter, for instance, let's say here and expecting that breakout, but it doesn't. And it maybe comes back down, and then maybe even falls apart and then goes down even further. So it's all about risk versus reward, right? What is your risk tolerance? Or do you just wait to maybe buy down here? Or maybe it comes back down one more time and to closer to the 340s, and then it rockets and you get a phenomenal entry. But the risk there is, well, maybe it never comes back down there. Maybe it comes back only a little bit or doesn't at all, and then just rockets from here. So again, there's always a mix of the things, right? And it depends on how you want to play it, obviously. So that's the main thing I'll be looking at for the bullish side. Now let's look at the bearish side, right? What bearish signs are there? Well, the most obvious one is the fact that, well, I mean, this could just fall apart, right? Naturally, this pattern can potentially fall apart. What can potentially suggest that? Well, the MACD, you can see down here, is still cross bearish despite this move up. You know, it is still cross bearish, and potentially we could just be getting a nice little bearish cross retest into a continuation down further. So that is a bearish thing to potentially watch out for. I guess a sign of caution, if that makes sense, that, you know, you might want to be a little bit careful about. The stochastic is also a little bit of a bearish crossover here as well. It is close to the overbought territories, so that's something else to consider. My bands are still in overbought territory, especially if you go over to the weekly. It's still exceptionally overbought, and it's not even close. And Tesla likes to do these things. They can see here where it likes to stay overbought in these territories and make it seem like it's ready to push higher, only to pretty much just go lower. And it's done that several times, even back here, right? It likes to do these kind of consolidations after these massive run-ups just to kind of bait everyone that gets excited for the next leg up, only to go lower. Like that is an actual risk to watch out for here, right? So that's something that you definitely want to watch out for, in my opinion, because, you know, again, it's not foolproof. This pattern, despite it looking pretty good, it is absolutely not perfect or foolproof, and it can fall apart, especially when you have the MACD and the stochastic, you know, on the bearish side over here. So again, that's why it's very important to either get a very good risk versus reward, so that even if it does fall apart and, you know, you're wrong essentially, which is perfectly fine, you minimize your loss, or you enter on what essentially would be a breakout. And again, if it, you know, breaks back down under, congratulations, that's a stop loss. You minimize loss, right? So it's all about getting those nice looking entries. So those are the main bearish things I would watch out for on Tesla, that, you know, I would be a little bit on the careful end, right? Especially if we go to the 4-hour, you can see here the divergence from any indicators, right? Which essentially just shows divergences that are occurring. And it's not perfect by any means, but it's pretty good at trying to nail where the tops or the bottom are, right? You can see here, for instance, to nail the top here a little bit early, but nonetheless, you know, top not that long after on the 4-hour, or back here, you know, a little bit early, but it wasn't too long after that it topped. Same here, you know, it is starting to show some 3 divergences all the way pretty much at this 4-hour closure that we just had. So that is showing also some signs of concern. So that's why, you know, despite this being a bullish pattern, it's not perfect. Oh, what the hell? Someone in the hallways screaming like a maniac. You know, despite this being a bullish pattern, it's not perfect. So that's why it's very important to wait for confirmation or getting a good entry, in my opinion, that has solid risk versus reward. My goodness, what the hell's going on over there? But yeah, so that's kind of the main thing I'm looking at for Tesla. In terms of options flow, taking a quick look at options flow. Let's go over here. Let's see what's happening. Let's go over to Tesla. Some puts definitely came in towards the end of the day, so you want to watch out for that, right? Definitely some puts came in, but for the most part, the bulls are still absolutely overwhelming the bears throughout the day. But if we go over to black box, you can see Tesla is most confirmed 30 million bearish flow. So again, a little bit of mixed signals here, but in my opinion, I think the best thing to wait for is really just let this pattern play out, wait for a good confirmation or a good risk versus reward type entry near the bottom of the trend line, roughly, or as close as you can to it, and then just kind of let the pattern do its thing and either, you know, play out the bullish pattern and actually break out, and congratulations, we're probably seeing 385 at least, or it falls apart, we most likely break below here. If we lose 325, we most likely go to 310. If we lose 310, we most likely go back all the way down here to about that 285-ish region, and just let those levels decide it for you. No reason to guess too much, but that's all I got for you. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.